Welcome to Trauma Toxin Transformation. I'm your host, Nina Vasquez. And in this video, I'm going to teach you about transformation. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about my story, and I'm going to, at the end, drop a truth bomb and a little tool to help you in this journey we called life. So, what makes me qualified to have a channel that's called Trauma Talks and Transformation? Well, I have to tell you my story in order for you to understand what brought me here and what's pulling me to do this channel. So, definitely my soul. My soul is pulling me to do this channel and to serve and to really share all the things that I've learned over the past 45 years. I am 45 years old. And in order for me to really hear that my soul was calling me to do this, to start serving in this way, I had to know what it was like to not hear my soul's calling. And I will tell you what that was like. All right, I'm gonna have to start when I was little, but trust me, I'm going to make this quick. So, trauma, what is trauma? Trauma is um, too fast, something too fast, too soon. Things that you've experienced in your life that cause too much emotion, too fast, too soon. So, I was raised in a very shaky household. My mother was 19 when she had me, and I was her fourth kid. So you can imagine that there were, four toddlers under five in the home at that time. My dad and my mother split up multiple times, and my mother was a drug addict. So she wasn't a drug addict. She wasn't the mom who was a drug addict where she was functional. Where she just had an opiate addiction or something. No, she was a drug addict who often lived on the streets, who sometimes was around and sometimes not around. She also, now looking back, I know she was doing the best she could then, but she would lie. She would come and say, I'll be right back, and never come back. She also, I have many siblings, and we were separated. So I was, in one city and state, and my siblings were in another city and state. And she would leave us places that were unsafe. She just wasn't functioning. And sometimes she got clean and then she would go back to it. So my mom passed away a few years ago, and ultimately she passed away of cirrhosis of the liver because she moved from, hard drugs, street drugs to alcohol. So when you're raised in an environment like that, that's unstable, you can often develop what we call complex PTSD. And I didn't realize I had complex PTSD till I was in my 30s, actually late 30s, early 40s. Didn't realize it. But I went on to live my life, and I was doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do, right? I was, um, I actually, let me rewind. So when I was 8 years old, I met for the first time that I can remember, because I know I was around my dad whenever I was a little baby, but I met for the first time that I can remember my father's side of the family, my father, and it was a culture shock. So, um, and while my dad was doing his best at the time, he was raised to be a disciplinarian, and the way that you love is to provide. So he basically went to work and was a disciplinarian. And in many ways, that served me because I went to the army when I was turned 18. So fast forward through childhood, my mother was an in and out mother, and at the age of 14, that was the last time that she was like really in my life. And prior to that, it was a back and forth situation. And so at the age of 18, I wanted to leave my little town. I was raised in a little town with 31 people in my graduating class. I wanted to get out of there. So I ran away to the military, where I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do, right? Get a good job, get married, have a relationship, and just work, right? Go to college. Which I eventually went to college, but didn't graduate college. That's another episode. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. So I had a child when I was 23 years old. I was about to turn 23, actually. And I was just doing the best I could. But I was repeating some of the same cycles that, some of the same patterns and, parenting styles that I had. Here's the thing, something to know about me is that all I ever wanted to be was a mother, ever, because I didn't really have one. And I wanted to be the best mother. And so I was doing what I saw growing up because the only parenting style I had. So it was very disciplinary. I was harsh. I was, in the military. And I want to share something with you. If your mother didn't have the capacity to give you love, to show you actual true love, growing up, then you don't have the capacity to give it to your children. And so while I was saying I love my daughter, I was also suffering from depression and anxiety, high stress jobs, and I was living in what we call fight or flight. So I was either living in the fight stress response or flight and freeze and fawn response. My top three nervous system responses, whenever I was in my 20s and 30s, were fight, flight, and freeze. And so what would happen is I would be in fight and in this high stress state, and then I would drop down into freeze. Another one that was really took over my life was fawning. This is where we appease people, we appease our abusers. And I learned this at a young age because I did not mention, but all those years from the time that I was born until I was 8 years old, I was neglected, abandoned, and abused. And I experienced multiple cases of sexual abuse. And I became an appeaser. I thought if I appease my abuser, then I will get love and acceptance as a child. And then so that's who I was. That's who I became growing up. I developed parts of me that were people pleasing, perfectionism, and yeah, people pleasing and perfectionism were like the biggest ones. And then I landed in what we call freeze. So fast forward to the end of my 30s, I began to hear my soul speaking to me louder and louder and louder, and she got louder. And I remember feeling, all through the depression, all through the anxiety, I I remember feeling like I wasn't supposed to be in that relationship that I was in. And so there were a couple times that I had, left my husband, but I would go back. But at the end of my 30s, I had this moment where I knew I couldn't be in that relationship anymore. I knew that me being in that relationship was self-abandonment the whole time. It came to me like this knowing that I couldn't stop ignoring. And so I ended my marriage in 2016. I ended my marriage, and then for the next 4 years, I went on this personal development journey. And I started with my body. I started, working out, and I started in, I don't know if you know, but there used to be a multi-level marketing company called Beachbody. And Beachbody, I used to say Beachbody saved my life because I found some people on the internet, right, on social media. And then I ended up moving to a new city in the state I was in. And then I met these wonderful humans, and I started started weight loss coaching other people. But what I realized was I was consuming personal development, but I was still suffering. There were still days that I couldn't get out of bed. There were still days that I was feeling depressed. And there were still days that I contemplated taking my own life. And I knew that I just really hadn't found the answer because I was consuming a lot of information, but I wasn't actually healing or making any changes. So in 2020, when you know what hit in 2020, I decided that I would become a life coach and I would go to the life coach school for my training. And that decision to invest At the time, it was $18,000. To invest in that changed my life, changed the trajectory of my life. At the time, I was working a corporate job and I had just enough in my 401k that I was just starting to rebuild after divorce. And I took it all out and I invested in becoming a life coach. And I learned that our thoughts create our reality, but I learned it. I know you hear that all the time, right? Your thoughts create your reality, but like your thoughts create your feelings drive your actions, and your actions drive your results. I learned what we call the model. So I started to apply that to my life and I started to coach people. And I was coaching myself regularly, but I was still struggling. I was still depressed. I was still contemplating not being here. I have a really strange, I really want to make sure I'm very truthful with you because this is trauma, truths, and transformation. I have a very strained relationship with my daughter. We don't communicate. She doesn't communicate with me. And that has been the biggest hole in my solar plexus, the biggest pain in my life. And I couldn't figure out how to not allow that to, stop me from wanting to live, to be honest. And along my path of consuming all kinds of personal growth stuff, I came upon someone who helped me see that I had unhealed trauma in my body. This is where shit got real because I realized that I had been living my whole life in a trauma response. I had been living my whole life from the fawn response, from the freeze response, from the people pleasing response. And it was like, it was like a Mack truck hit me in the face. And I realized that, oh, okay, this makes sense. If I have stored trauma in my body, it makes sense why these mindset tools that I'm using and I'm coaching with, they're not working. They're not changing. I'm not changing. And I realized that my nervous system was so unhealed that I couldn't even be in the present moment. One of my favorite books is back there on that shelf is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I read that book and I went on a solo trip to Colorado and I read that book and I realized I can't sit on a park bench and be in the present moment. Like my body is so unhealed. I used to also struggle with journaling because I couldn't be in the present moment. So I went on a healing journey after that, and on this channel, I plan on sharing with you things that have helped me, things that have helped me on my healing journey. I also decided to invest in more training because I was approaching life coaching from the state of the mind. I wasn't approaching life coaching from the state of the mind and the body and the spirit. And so I needed to invest in more training to become more skilled at helping me and you heal trauma. So that's what I did over the last 2 years. And I use those modalities now, like somatic practices and nervous system regulation tools and inner child healing. Those are the kinds of things that I use and I'll be sharing on this channel. I want to like pivot a little bit into like what I'm passionate about. So I'm super passionate about the things I just talked to you about, healing trauma and setting yourself free in your body, mind, and soul. And I'm also passionate about you and me following our souls, like the voice, the whispers of our heart. You may hear me talk on this channel about spirituality, but not of the religious context. You may also hear me talk about health because I am super passionate about health. I didn't say so earlier, but I weighed 50 pounds heavier than I do right now. And all through from the end of my divorce, all through 2020, I was on this weight loss journey. And the biggest coping mechanism that I used from childhood on was eating emotionally. I would eat my feelings. I could not feel my feelings. So I'm really passionate about weight and health, and I became a weight loss coach, and I still do weight loss coaching. While it's not my primary, passion, I still help people heal their relationship with the food, and start feeling their emotions. Because if we can feel our emotions, literally, they are I think it's the tool to heal every aspect of our life if we can be with ourselves. So that's a little bit about my story and what makes me qualified to even talk about trauma, right? So in future videos, we're going to talk about the nervous system. We're going to talk about your capacity in your nervous system. We're going to talk about tools. We're going to talk about health and weight loss and how to use your mind to create what you want in your life, how to heal your body from stored trauma, because the trauma, I know we've all heard of the words body keeps the score, right? But the body does keep the score. It doesn't just keep the score, it holds the energy of that trauma. And then the mind holds the stories we made up about ourselves when we experience that trauma. And so, whatever we believe about ourselves, we create our world, our life with that. Okay. So, I'll share a little bit about something that I used to believe. So, like I said, I was abused many times growing up before the age of 8. And I used to think that I was broken and disgusting, and something must be wrong with me. So, if you have those beliefs about yourself, guess what your standards are in life? You will just take just enough, right? When you have partners or guys you date that don't treat you well, you say, well, I don't deserve any better because I'm not enough. And you start creating a life that's not good enough because you're not good enough, and you attract not good enough, right? And so then you start collecting evidence all around you. Yep, I cannot solve this weight problem to save my life. I was a yo-yo dieter from age 20 to 36. And yep, more evidence that I'm broken, that I'm not good enough because I can't solve this thing, right? So we're going to go into mindset. We're going to go into nervous system stuff on this channel. So stay posted. I'm going to transition a little bit to teaching you a little bit about what the heck is transformation. Why is transformation in the name? So transformation is not, um, I want to say being your best self. Transformation is not changing your habits. While those things can happen, what I want you to think of transformation as is unbecoming anything that is not your highest self, right? We are not our thoughts. We are not our patterns. You are not your habit patterns. You are not your thoughts. You are not your trauma responses. You are not the parts of you who developed to stay safe as a child. You're not a people pleaser. You have a part of you who developed. So when I'm talking about transformation, I'm talking about emerging from the muck of everything that you had to become to stay safe as a kid. And if you've gotten this far and you don't know, age 0 to 7 or 8 are the most crucial, formidable times. And many of my clients are like, Nina, I don't want to blame it on my parents or my upbringing. And news flash, the human brain works that way. The human experience works that way. All your beliefs about yourself and the world are developed when you're a child. And if you don't want to go back there at all, not even for the healing process, and you just want to face forward, I get it. I get it. I didn't want to look either. And I tell you, there's only one reason to look in the past, and that is to heal your trauma so you can live the life you really want to live, right? So that's what transformation is. It is unbecoming everything that you had to become and stepping in, not into, stepping through all of that so your true highest self emerges. That's what I believe transformation is. Now, before I drop you with a truth and a tool, I want to encourage you to challenge everything that I teach you. Don't take anything I say for face value, because who am I, right? Well, I believe that I'm you and you are me, but I'm just human. I'm imperfect. I'm allowing myself to do this YouTube channel imperfectly. I may say something that doesn't resonate with you, and the thing that matters most is what resonates with you and what doesn't. I also may say something that triggers you or activates you, and that's not always a bad thing because we have to become aware first before transformation can occur. Awareness precedes change, awareness precedes choice. So if something I say, if you get activated by something I say, let that be an invitation to go into it and check in with yourself like, okay, why did my face get flushed when she said that? Why did I have anxiety in my stomach? What happened? What's happening here, right? All right. So let's drop you with the truth. So here's the truth I want to leave you with today. When we walk through any sort of trauma in our life, we often pick up coping mechanisms, and we all have them. And my truth this year is to release one of my coping mechanisms. The thing that I went to the most was consumption, consuming food, consuming alcohol, consuming social media, consuming, even personal growth stuff. So this year I'm working on releasing consumption of social media specifically, releasing consumption of, scrolling on TikTok, releasing consumption of scrolling on Instagram, releasing consumption of over learning. Because, see, my highest self says, connect with me more. My lower self says, we need to learn more. We need to know more. We need to get this false sense of connection outside of us, that the answer is outside of us. But my highest self says the answer is within. You have all the answers within you. That's my biggest lesson that I learned this past year. And now I'm working to release this pattern. So I want to share with you a tool and a tip. The tool I have to share with you is called a brick. It's literally just this magnetic brick. You order the brick. I think it's like brick.com. I don't even have a link, sorry, or like a discount code. You download the app called Brick on your phone, and then on your phone, you can choose the apps that you will allow and choose the apps that you won't allow while you're bricked. And you literally just put the brick up to your phone to unbrick or to brick. And this, you can put it on your fridge or anywhere it's magnetic in your home. And that is one of the biggest things that's helping me. If you've ever read the book Dopamine Nation, she talks about having like something in the way, like a barrier in the way of your addiction or your pattern. And so the brick has been helping me. And then the second thing that I wanted, just a tip to leave you with is if you scroll for 30 minutes, commit to 30 minutes of connecting with yourself that day. You can do it. We can do it together because in order to access our highest self, we have to have a connection to our highest self. And the biggest thing that's in our way is consumption. And the more that we connect to our body, the more that we connect to our nervous system, the more we can be with our body, the easier it is to release those. All right, so I'm going to leave you with a free resource that will help you connect to your body. It is 5 simple everyday somatic tools that you can use to help you connect more to your body. This is especially useful if you have experienced any trauma that had anything to do with your body. You can download this guide right down in the description box. And until next time, my friends, lots of love to you in this journey that we call life. I'll see you in the next video.